This week's video will focus on Zondervan's New Revised Standard Version Journal the Word Bible with the Apocryphal Deuterocanonical books. I'll begin by showing you the box. So it's a clamshell box. It hinges and opens this way. Very sturdy. You can pause the video and read this information if you like. It has lined wide margins, thick cream-colored paper, single column format, as you see here, 2 satin ribbon markers, and a 9-point print. And there's a sample and the ISBN, which you'll see, or should have seen on the charts already. To give you a sense for the dimensions, it's a Leathersoft Bible. We will first compare it to the Allan New Revised Standard Version. And it's clearly a shorter Bible, a bit wider, and considerably thicker. Here's the Cambridge New Revised Standard Version. Both the Allan and the Cambridge include the Deuterocanonical books. So again, our journaling Bible is thicker. It's about the same width. This Cambridge Bible is also sort of a short, wide volume as well. Dimensionally, it's 8 7/16 inches tall, 6 3/4 inches wide, 2 1/8 inches thick. We saw that it's a single column text format. The column is about 92 millimeters wide, just a little over 92. I count about 68 characters per line, and you can have as many as 55 lines of text on a page. Page dimensions are 203 millimeters tall, that's 8 inches tall, 6.2 inches wide, or 158 millimeters wide. 158. The text is line matched. You can see the text from the opposite page here. Everywhere I've checked, it does line up with the line on the other side of the page. Font, as you can see, is relatively bold. I like that in a Bible font. Problem with a bolder font is it increases the show through to the other side. But with the line matching and this relatively thick, creamy paper, I don't find show through to be much of a problem. The margins are at the top. It varies between 14 and 16 millimeters. At the bottom, it's between 5 and 7. The inner margin is narrow. It can be as much as 14 millimeters. The outer is quite wide. So from the edge of the print to the edge of the page, varies between 50 and 55 millimeters. Remember, there are 25.4 millimeters in an inch. The box said that the font is 9-point. When I compare capitals, like this capital T to Times New Roman, it matches an 8.5-point Times New Roman. The lowercase letters, however, are closer to a 10-point. So that's pretty typical for a Bible font. Usually the caps are smaller than Times New Roman. The lowercase letters are larger. Line height, the distance from baseline to baseline, is 9 45/100, 9.45 points. So it is a rather generous line spacing. It certainly seems adequate as far as I'm concerned. We see the verse numbers within paragraphs. So here's one at the beginning of a paragraph, and then as each verse begins within the paragraph, you have a raised numeral showing you which verse you're at. The New Revised Standard Version does not italicize. The translator is smoothing words that they add that don't really map to a word in the original language, but which have been added to make the English read more smoothly. Those are not in a special font. Often translations use an italic font for that. Quotations from the Old Testament in the New are in quotation marks. They are sometimes indented or set off as these are here in Romans. and sometimes they are not. Sometimes they're just left embedded in the text, as here. This volume does include page bottom text and translation notes. They're in a single column, about the same width as the text column. The font is 7 points for capitals, 8 point for lowercase, and they are, as you can see, tagged back to the source in the text, so you can read these backwards. If you find a note that's interesting, you can find the location it's referring to in the text with ease. The paper is thick. I measure it to be 48.7 micrometers thick. I estimate the paper weight to be 45 GSM. The surface is very nearly matte. You may be able to see a little gleam here, but it's quite diffuse. It's a cream color, and you see the glow in the gutter. Show-through is moderate. So here we're looking at the show-through between paragraphs. It is not troublesome, as I mentioned. There is no bleed-through. So here you can see notes that I've made in the margin, and some marks I put lower half brackets and a raised alpha in the text that the note refers to. And if you look at the opposite side of the page, that's the amount of show-through you get. You get no bleed-through. The ink doesn't actually make it to the other side, and you cannot, with any ease at all, tell where I've marked on the other side. There is the raised alpha, I believe. Another thing I'm doing here is I am underlining in pencil words that are not present. They don't represent anything in the Greek, and that seems not to be an issue either. If you look back to the other page, you really can't see any indication that it's been marked on the other side. There is no observable print non-uniformity in this volume. I've looked. It does occasionally appear to be lighter to my eyes, but when I actually compare it, I don't see a non-uniformity. Words of Christ are in black ink, as I prefer it, so it keeps everything dark and bold, high contrast and readable. No variation in the show-through effect due to the red ink. Pronouns for deity are not capitalized in the New Revised Standard Version, and I prefer that as well. In this volume, there are no book introductions. So if we go to the beginning of the book of Luke, you'll see that it just begins there with Luke. Book titles are where they should be. They're on the outside top of the page, along with the contents. Page numbers are also in the outside top. There are in-text headings. They're in a bold sans serif font, about 9.5 points tall. Chapter numbers are, let's find one. Chapter numbers are large and bold, and they span 2 lines of text. And the books of the Bible began on separate pages. So if we look at some of the smaller books in the back of the Bible, we'll see them all starting on separate pages. James, let's see, there's 1 Peter, there's 1 John, there's 3 John, and Jude. It is definitely a sewn binding, and I think you can see the signatures are pretty visible here at the edges of the page and down here at the spine. In fact, you can also see thread in the gutter here in this volume on pages 1842 and 1843. If you look down in there, you'll see thread. There's one, for instance, right above my finger. Here's another. There are 6 lines of thread altogether. They seem a bit loose in places, which has me a little concerned. That one seems like it has some give to it. At the end of the Apocalypse, we find 17 lined pages for notes. So there's 17 pages like this. They're college ruled. At the end of the notes, on the back side of the last page of notes, there's a note regarding the type. So pause the video and take a look at that if you're interested. It's Same 2K Denmark people that do all the comfort print. It's a paper paste down. This is the paper liner. And it's a Leathersoft cover. It's brown. It has edge stitching. And I'm not sure how one makes Leathersoft, but it feels very much like fabric. It's similar to fabric. And it feels very comfortable and soft in your hands. There are 2 ribbon markers, one golden brown, one dark brown. The ribbon markers are 7 millimeters wide, 293 millimeters long, and they were put in straight, which is quite good. So they do not tend to come out at this end at an angle, but they were put in quite straight. There are golden brown head and tail bands. Attractively done. Plain, not gilt edges, so the page edges are cream, which matches quite well with the brown cover. It lies open. The volume will lie quite open and flat in the book of Genesis. So here's Genesis 1. If you get towards the center of the volume, the text does curve into the gutter, and it is a narrow inner margin, so you have to do the normal thing, except here in the poetic section. It's not an issue. But you do have the curvature into the gutter, which means you may need to manipulate the pages to keep them straight on the side that you're interested in reading. If we go to the front of the volume, see a little cross-like emblem here at the top of the page, a place to put your personal information in case it gets lost. The half title page, the copyright page, all the normal information here. It is printed in the People's Republic of China, so take note of that if that bothers you. It's the first printing in 2019, so 19 here means the year, and on the right the numeral 1 not being covered means it's the first printing. The table of contents. So the order of the books here is the normal Protestant/Jewish order. Well, it's not the Jewish Bible, is it? The Jewish Bible ends with Chronicles. But the normal Protestant order of the Old Testament books. And then the Apocryphal Deuterocanonical books separated out. And it's separated, we'll see this later, but it's separated out according to canon. So these books through here, through 2nd Maccabees, are in the Roman Catholic canon, and these others are in other canons. Then the normal 27 books of the New Testament. A blank page. For those less familiar with the Bible, the books in alphabetical order with the page numbers listed. The introduction to the New Revised Standard Version from the Translation Committee. By Bruce Metzger, the late Bruce Metzger. And then we come to a single page introducing the Old Testament. And here we are in the Old Testament. And just for fun, I'll show you the lack of bleed-through and the extent of show-through on the following page. So we'll go over. And that's the kind of show-through you have from using a black Pigma Micron 005 ink pen. And I think you'll agree with me that that's tolerable. We'll take just a moment now looking at the Apocryphal Deuterocanonical books, particularly the headings. So here we come to Tobit, and there's a note that tells you the books and parts of books from Tobit through 2nd Maccabees are Deuterocanonical scripture in the Roman Catholic, Greek, and Russian Orthodox churches. If we go to the end of that section, we come to 1st Esdras, and we have a note that tells us that 1st Esdras through 3rd Maccabees are recognized as deuterocanonical by the Greek and Russian Orthodox Church, but not the Roman Catholic Church. First Esdras and the Prayer of Manasseh are placed in an appendix in the Latin Vulgate. Then we come to Second Esdras, and it is included in the Slavonic Bible as Third Esdras, but is not found in the Greek. Included in the appendix to the Latin Vulgate Bible is Fourth Esdras, which all points out how important it is to place context around your naming. Second Esdras in Ralph's Septuagint is Ezra and Nehemiah, two canonical books. And then, finally, we come to Fourth Maccabees, and the note says, the following book appears in an appendix to the Greek Bible. We will do some font comparisons in a moment. First, I just wanted to zoom in on this font. Unlike other Y2K fonts, particularly the Milo font that's in the Schuyler Canterbury, this one is nice and bold, and I do like it. I like the ones they've invented for the NKJV and the NASB as well. Tracking is a little tight in places, as you can see here in the word offering, but it's not particularly disturbing. The F and fat and the A almost touch each other. The word spacing is quite good, and then the line spacing I think is adequate. You may find places where a descender gets kind of close to the raised portion of the lower line, but there seems to be adequate white space. We will begin by comparing this journaling Bible with the New Oxford Annotated Study Bible on the left. The one on the left clearly has a larger font with better line spacing, but it's not quite so bold. Now on the left I have the Cambridge New Revised Standard Version Reference Edition with the Apocrypha. It has what appears to be a bit smaller font, at least to my eyes. Not quite as bold. White paper, and of course very narrow margins, so you would only write in this edition with difficulty. And now on the left is the Allan NRSV 1, so definitely a smaller, less bold font on the left, but I think superior line spacing on the left to that on the right. The New Revised Standard Version tends to avoid using masculine, grammatically masculine pronouns like he and him, and words like man, and rephrases things to avoid doing so. If you're not familiar with the New Revised Standard Version, you might want to take a look at a video that I posted last February entitled New Revised Standard Version versus English Standard Version. The New Revised Standard Version is neither particularly literal nor particularly free. It falls in the middle of the spectrum as I measure literalness. You can see there on this chart a few words about how I've done that. And I would like to caution you not to conflate literalness with accuracy. This is simply a matter of how often do they replace conjunctions, replace pronouns, change a verb's tense, doing things like that. Accuracy, I think, is more involved with conveying the meaning properly into the destination language, and I really don't have a good way of determining accuracy. The New Testament of the New Revised Standard Version is one of the editions that I looked at when I compared them to 4 Greek New Testaments and 153 verses. And the New Revised Standard Version agrees with the Nestle-Aland 28th edition about 80.4% of the time. It's about the third highest in terms of agreement rate with the NA 28. It does not agree with Robinson-Pierpont at a high rate. So it's not reflecting a Byzantine source text. If this makes no sense to you and you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to take a look at a video I posted last November entitled A Four-Dimensional Perspective on Bible Translations. So if you're looking for a journaling Bible or a wide margin Bible that includes the Apocryphal books, I encourage you to take a look at this sewn edition in very comfortable Leathersoft cover with nice thick pages that minimize the show through and the bleed through, and a very comfortable bold print. There is one other option that I've seen advertised. It's a Catholic edition. The Catholic edition does not include a number of the books that this one does, which is one of the two reasons I chose this one over the Catholic edition. The other reason I chose this one over the Catholic edition is that the line spacing here seems more generous than that in the Catholic edition. Catholic edition did have the advantage of having a more narrow text column, but I liked the fact that this one had wider line spacing because I intend to insert symbols in between the lines as I make notes. That sound you're hearing is the Bible itself making a creaking noise as I turn the pages. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this brief look at the Zondervan New Revised Standard Version Journal of the Word Bible with Apocrypha. If you did, please remember to hit the like button. If you haven't already done so and you're so inclined, please subscribe to the channel, and thank you for your time.